Krishnaprana, and I have been a nun of the order for 45 years. We have 2 convents in the Ramakrishna order. One of them is in Southern California, and one is in Northern California. Otherwise, there are no nuns in the Ramakrishna order. It only happened in the West here, where Swami Vivekananda came, and he was the one who introduced the teachings of Vedanta to the West. He came in 1893 to the Chicago Parliament of Religions. Tonight's, as I say, I've never done this before, so tonight's topic is going to be yoga for a balanced life. Now, mostly in the West right now, when we say yoga, we think of hatha yoga. Okay, that's one kind of yoga. It's not the kind that we necessarily emphasize. Many of our monks and devotees do hatha yoga for health reasons. But the kind of yogas that we emphasize are the 4 yogas that Swami Vivekananda taught. Yoga just means union with the divine. Hatha yoga, as I understand in India, was traditionally practiced to attain longevity. So you would have the opportunity to realize your divine nature in a healthy body. The 4 yogas that we emphasize are Jnana Yoga, which is the yoga of knowledge, Karma Yoga, which is the yoga of selfless work, non-attached work, Bhakti Yoga, which is the yoga of devotion, worship. I would say the most identifiably religious yoga that we have. It would be like any church that you go to. And Raja Yoga, which is the yoga of meditation, discrimination, mind control. Now, and as I say, Hatha Yoga, exercise for longevity. And the only reason I'm including Hatha Yoga is because everyone needs a healthy body in order to pursue what their life purpose is. You can't pursue it if you're constantly thinking about your body because it's not working. So in order to develop our minds and our intellects and our identification with our real nature, which we say is divine, we need a healthy body so we don't have to think about it. So, if we followed in the Ramakrishna order of monks, we try to live a balanced life. We practice all 4 yogas every day. And that leads to a balanced life. Some people think it's a very boring life. I don't find it boring, though I fought the routine for probably 15 years. I thought it was just like overpoweringly constraining. But you see, I joined the order in the late 60s, I joined it in 72. I found it in 68. So in the United States in 1968, we were fighting every kind of constraint that you could imagine. We were rebelling against practically everything. So, of course, someone's saying, get up in the morning at 6, be in the temple meditating by 6:30. At 7:30, you leave the shrine. At 8 o'clock, you all eat breakfast together. At 9 o'clock, you do your karma yoga, which was our job for the day. And we rotated the jobs in the convent. At 12 noon, you go to the shrine again and sit and meditate. At 1 o'clock, you come together and eat your main meal. And then at 2 o'clock, you had time to go do what we would consider the exercise portion of our day. We all got out and worked in the garden. our property in Santa Barbara is, we have actually 35 acres and 11 buildings that we, as young nuns, took care of ourselves. So there was a lot of outside work to do and inside work. Then, say about 3 o'clock, 3 or 4, if you could still keep your eyes open, that was study time. Everyone would get in and read the books that the headquarters in Bellore had prescribed for every young monastic to read. They have a whole list. And we dutifully read all of those, and then we got together. 6 o'clock in the evening, we had arati. And this was every day, 365 without a break. Well, for someone who had just been in college doing pretty much what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it, attending classes if I felt like it, going skiing if I felt like it, this was literally so constraining that I was ready to scream most of the time. As soon as I stopped fighting it, it became very, very easy to do. And I think it's just simply a matter of, we all have certain rituals and routines that we follow every day. We have made them up ourselves. Like, you get up in the morning and you do something. I don't know. With me, it's 2 cups of coffee and then I can walk out of my bedroom. But until the 2 cups of coffee, I'm like, really? No, I can't do it. I have adapted the convent schedule to make time for that. I wake up at 3:30 most mornings and have my 2 cups of coffee, meditate, do my whole routine, walk the dog, do that, have time for everything that I need to do before we get to breakfast. I think most of us would find...
Should I dominate that because you can't hear?
I think it's too loud.
Yeah,
That's what I think it is. No.
Yeah.
Okay. I can take it. I'll try not to move. Not too easy for me. Anyway, most of us fight a routine that we feel is imposed upon us by someone else. If it's a job we don't like, or if it's, you have to do this today. Most of us will kind of go, really? I would rather be doing this. Now, if we stop, what I find for a balanced life is if we stop fighting these things, simply do it, like Nike says, just do it. We have endless amounts of time for ourselves. I mean, how long does it really take to get up in the morning, make your bed, do minor things? You come back and it's nice and clean and everything's in order. And if that's not your thing, I don't know, what do you do in the morning? What I used to do when I was in college, I took my phys ed class first thing because it was swimming, and I'd go in my pajamas and jump into the pool and go back and get started. But that was then. We find there's things that we want to do during the day. Like some of us want to have time to go for a hike. We want to have time to pursue artwork that we want to do. We want to have time to visit with our friends, take some time out, just maybe sit in a quiet spot. We can do that quite easily, very, very easily, without having our minds agitated if we have taken care of the things that we feel we have to do. Because most of the time that we're thinking of the things we have to do, we're procrastinating, we're worrying about what we need to do. We're saying, oh, it's going to take so much time. And we spend probably a good hour in a state of anxiety thinking about what we have to do instead of just doing it. Activities don't take that long. But the worry about it, the anticipation, if I don't do it right, how is this going to turn out? What if they don't like it? This absolutely takes so much time that we end up beating ourselves up with wasted time. So if we can develop a habit and a routine of our own making, unless you join a convent or a monastery, and then they're just going to, or the army, they're going to impose it upon you. They're just going to do it, that's it. But you will know how to do it at the end of that time. Set up a schedule where you have, this is just, where you have, that you can easily do. It does, first of all, the one thing that I found the most productive about setting up a schedule and a balanced life, your whole life is nothing but habits. Habits and rituals that you get into because it makes things easier for you, or you think it does. Sometimes they're very counterproductive, but we don't recognize it. Okay, so the first thing we have to do in order to set up a balanced life, in my estimation, is define what our goal is. What do you want out of life? And this takes thought, because it's not just what do I want next year, or what do I want next in 5 years. It's what do you really want out of life. And many of us get taken down paths because we haven't made that definition yet. And I'll tell you from my own experience, when I went to college, I went in as a math major because I was very, very good in math. Hated it. Absolutely hated it. So after the first quarter, I became a sociology major. Much better. I like people and I like to know how they work together. So I stayed a sociologist. Then I took, I thought, maybe I should do psychology too, and a little cultural anthropology, because I really like people. And that's what I don't like, mathematics and science. Now, mind you, I've done mathematics and science all through high school. I like the only girl in all the advanced math classes, that kind of thing. So, but I had freedom at college. I could pick my own classes. So I spent a lot of time switching majors, taking unnecessary classes, anything that caught my interest in the curriculum, that's what I did. I took classes in cartography. Now, how many of you want to be cartographers now that they have GPS? No one. But I could probably draw a map. And I did that for 4 years. 3.5 years I did that. I got enough credits to have a psych major, enough credits to have a sociology major, and minors in, I think it was geology, anthropology. I liked to study, and I took lots of classes. And I spent a third some quarters and 2/3 of my time skiing, because that's what I really liked. And then came the sudden realization, oh my God, I'm going to have to do something. What do I want to do? Now, this is a totally out of balance life. This is doing whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted to. No discipline at all. Well, I got my grades. I did do that. I had enough, shall we say, vanity not to bomb out of college. So I suddenly decided I'll get an education degree and I'll go teach kids. So I did that. And I grew up in Washington State, where, as many of you know, it rains all the time. So Hawaii was offering, they were trying to get mainland teachers. So they were recruiting at our college, and I went, yeah, I'll go to Hawaii. And yes, I did. I got a job, and I went to Hawaii and taught school there 2 years and thought, got to get off the islands. Okay. Still doing exactly what I wanted in my time frame. Having a wonderful time. I mean, I had a good time. I had lots of friends. I did all of this stuff. Came back to Washington State to finish an advanced degree. And went down the coast with a group of friends and ended up in Santa Barbara and met Swami Prabhavananda, who was one of the first, after Swami Vivekananda came to the United States, Swami Prabhavananda was one of the first Swamis to start centers. He started the Southern California Center. He was also in San Francisco. And I think he started the Portland Center. I'm not sure of that, but I think so, Portland, Oregon. And as soon as I met him, I went, well, that's what I really want. What I'd really like is to be like him. Now, that's, that's impossible. But he was calm. He knew who he was, down to his very bones. He knew that he was divine, and everyone that walked into his presence was divine also. And he made you feel that. And so I thought, well, I'll move to Santa Barbara and study with him. And did. Like, we got back up to Washington, cleaned up the cleaned up all the little loose ends, and moved down to Santa Barbara. Got a job there. Okay, but there were a lot of things. So I made a decision at that point in my life that that's what I wanted out of life. It didn't matter what I did every day, but that was the goal that I wanted. To have that knowledge of my own self, who my eternal self was, who I was way down inside, like when Ramana Maharshi asks the question, who am I? Because we're not our bodies, we're not our minds. They change constantly, they're not eternal. They're constantly changing. But what is it about us that is the eternal part? Children know it. When you see little tiny children and they'll say, where was I before I was here? They know there's something eternal about themselves. So I listened to Swami and I found out that what my basic goal in life was to realize that internal divinity. Now that's not everyone's, and there's nothing wrong with that. But we each have to decide on a goal. Do we want to have success in our life? In this, do we want material success? We have a little girl in our Sunday school, and she wants to be a star. And she's got a wonderful singing voice, and I'm encouraging her to try out for the next teenage star, because that's what she really wants, and she may as well do it this life. But we each have to decide what it is. Do we want to have a successful family life? Do we want to meet the person that we can live the rest of our life with and raise children in a way that will make them happy, productive human beings? We just have to decide on our goal. Once that's set, then you can make your choices every single day. Is it taking me closer to that, or is it taking me further away? I just was introduced to a book by one of our devotees who has a very, very hard life situation. Their son has, at 17, developed paranoid schizophrenia, and it has been devastating for the family, devastating for him. But they have chosen to look at it as a blessing that they can learn, and they have the blessing to take care of him. She introduced me to a book. I don't know if any of you have read it. It's called Solve for Happy, and it was written by the financial CEO of Google. And this man lost his son when his son was 20 years old with a medical mistake. And he decided he could live his life constantly blaming everyone, constantly, why me, why me, why me, or he could choose to be happy and direct his life for helping others. And since he was a financial expert, he went at it in a way that was just absolutely mystifying to me. He talked about, it's a very scientific approach to changing your life. But his first comment was, we had to, when we are born, our default mode is happiness. He said, just look at any baby. And babies are intrinsically happy unless there is a specific thing wrong with their environment that can be alleviated. They're hungry, their diapers are dirty, they have a cold, but intrinsically they're happy all the time. And he said something happens to us as we get older. Our default mode goes to unhappiness, criticism, depression, that we see everything that's wrong with the world. We don't see what's right. And he said, in order to change our inner being, we have to undo that default mode and reassess and get back to our default mode of happiness. And he has a very interesting paradigm where he says, first we're in total criticism and constantly unhappy, looking at everything that they're doing this to me, this is not my fault, I didn't get the grade I should have because the professor doesn't like me, it didn't have anything to do with what I was doing, I did this right. Or they don't like me because I don't have the right clothes, all these things. He says, if we make up our minds, we make a choice every single morning when we get up. Will we be happy or will we be unhappy? Are we going to see the things that we can be grateful for? And he said, just trying to think of things that we're grateful for changes our very attitude. He said, you don't even really have to come up with them. But just trying to look for things will change our entire being and bring us back into that balance that we're missing when we're constantly criticizing or taking things personally. What I found as I've gotten older is most people aren't even thinking about someone else. They're basically thinking about themselves. When I was very young, and I read this somewhere, when you go out, you think everyone's looking at me. Well, they're not, but we think it because we're self-conscious and we don't have the self-confidence to just be who we are. Then when you get to be about 40, you think, well, they've stopped looking at me. And then when you get to be about 60, you go, they never were looking at me. Yeah, they weren't looking at me ever. So I spent a lot of time worrying about what they were thinking. They're not thinking about you. Well, almost everyone is up here. So we have the choice to do these things, change our lives. If you believe in the law of karma at all, We know that we have made this life and we are making the next life. There's no one to blame. No one's doing anything to us. No one's sitting out there going, today you're going to fail. No, they're not doing that. They're not doing that. We feed ourselves negative information which makes us insecure. If we feed ourselves positive information and reaffirm all the good things that are happening in our lives, and they are. I mean, just the very fact that you're at this college. How many people didn't get into this one? I mean, we have all kinds of things that, just little things to be grateful for. I was really grateful the sun was out today because this is so much colder than Santa Barbara. And I'm worried about tomorrow. They say it's only going to get up to 30. Yeah. It was very, you have no idea what I can worry about. Do I have closed shoes to bring to Pittsburgh? I haven't worn a pair of closed shoes probably in 4 years because we wear sandals all the time. And I'm going, I don't think they're going to work. It's cold. But these are all self-imposed things. I can, you know, we really are in charge of our own lives. And we really do have the opportunity to make a choice. So if you define your goal, success, family life, whatever your goal is, some people seem to have made the goal in life to be victimized. Their life is going perfectly well. Now, I know people like this. Everything is going right, and they always do something that makes it fall apart and blame it on someone else. When you can watch them do it, and you go, don't do that again, please don't do it again. But they do. And their basic self-identity is as a victim in life. Now, I find that very disempowering. I have never wanted to be victimized. I would rather take charge and be strong and do what I want, do what I want to do when I want to do it. But other people I have seen they want to kind of, I'll just go wherever life takes me. I'll go with the flow, whichever direction it's going. But they end up, it's kind of like a leaf caught on the side of the bank and not going anywhere of a river. Life is not, there's no guarantee it's going to be easy. There's no guarantee that anything will be done for you. But we have the ability to make those choices every day. Do I get up in the morning half an hour early so I can make it to class on time? Or do I stay in bed till the very last second and have to run across campus and get there and then like this? It's our choice how present we want to be. And that's another way to get a balanced life, is living now. Not thinking about what you need to do tomorrow, or going, oh my God, I should have done this 2 days ago. Don't live in the past, don't live in the future. I mean, all the self-help books, everyone, all religions say, live in the now. In the now, how do you live in the now? Because we have so trained ourselves to think about, tomorrow I have to do this and this and this and this. And let me tell you, sit down to meditate when you first start, and you're thinking about every job you have to do. Meditation, forget it. Your mind automatically goes to activities, what so-and-so said. That's the nature of the human mind. To get balance in our life, we have to train that mind. So training the mind is not that simple. It takes a lot of diligence. But we set up routines that we can do reasonably. One of our monks said when he first started to meditate, because he had a friend who was meditating, he was told you should sit and meditate for 15 minutes every day. And he said, he was desperately honest with himself. He said, I can't do it. I can't sit still for 15 minutes. And I can't concentrate on one thing for 15 minutes. So he set up his routine. He said, I can do it for 2 minutes. That's what I can do it for, and keep it up. Now, if any of you have made New Year's resolutions, we know that if we make them too hard, they'll last a week or two. And then we've given them up. I'm going to exercise every single day for 1 hour. Well, how long does that last? For me, it lasts about 4 days. But if we can, really look at ourselves in our own minds and say, what can I reasonably do to change my habits? Now, he now meditates for an hour and a half. But he reasonably knew himself, I can do it for 2 minutes every day and I can keep that up. I can go in and sit down for 2 minutes. He started slow. That's often what we have to do when we're training our mind. We can't jump in because we exhaust ourselves. We have to make time for entertainment in our lives. We have to make time for fun, for friends, for family, and for ourselves. If it's a quiet time, we had another monk down in Trabuco in Orange County. He painted. And he always had a certain amount of time during every day where he painted. He was an artist, and he painted magnificent portraits of saints and beautiful pictures. He also loved jazz, so he painted pictures of Louis Armstrong, jazz musicians. And you don't punish yourself for life. You work in time for enjoyment, for things that you want to do. Your job, you do your job, you do your family life. But family and friends are important. They're part of what make us happy people. Some people now are, including people who have made the computers, say, take a diet from your computers. Cut them off for one whole day. One of the men who was he in Google or was he in Apple? He said he took a vacation and he left all of his devices at home and went into the mountains for a month every year. I swore I would never have a smartphone. I did get a flip phone and I loved it. But the Swami in charge of our Southern California said, you must get a smartphone. I have to be able to contact you. So I got it and decided it was the most expensive answering machine I had ever encountered because I didn't carry it. I just left it in my room and then I check it maybe twice a day. That was 2 years ago. It's in my purse right now. I did turn it off, but I do check it every single morning, and I keep it with me all the time, and I'm going, this is really bad. So I'm trying to leave it in my room again for most days. Check it in the morning, answer the emails, check it in the evening, check it at noon and see if anything important has come up, and then check it in the evening. Another friend just came and told us if we wanted to let people know we were even in existence, we should get on Instagram. Oh my God. And we should post every day, and we should put at least 5 hashtags, because they might be looking for something. And I'm going, really? So we started doing that, and it's kind of hokey, but we're doing it, and we are getting people that are asking about us. But, I mean, I had no idea that this was what... We had a young woman come who wanted to be... She said, I'd like to try convent life. And we said, how did you find us? And she said, oh, I Googled Hindu nun. Now, we didn't even know we were on the internet. Okay? And we went, oh, okay. But these are all reasonable ways that we can balance our lives out. How much time do you spend on Facebook? How much time do you spend on study? Do you make time for yourselves to have fun? If not every day, at least 3 or 4 times a week. Take a walk with someone. Just something that's not, something that you really want to do. And sometimes we get so caught up in our work that we don't even know what we really want to do. It takes a while to think it up. Swami Prabhupada, who is the one that I met, said nature has given us 2 purposes when we are born. One is for pleasure and enjoyment, and the other is for freedom and realization of God. And the 2 are kind of at odds with each other, because pleasure and enjoyment are very, very temporary. It's usually to do with our senses going outward. And we distract ourselves going for the pleasurable. We use these as diversions. And I'm not saying that's bad. It's only natural. It's what the human being is when they're born. Everything about us, all of our senses are going out into the world. Everything. And we think we can be happy by pursuing that. But after a while, you realize they're so temporary and they go nowhere. That there's just a constant, I want more, I want more, I want more. Which is not satisfying or calming. So, if you decide you want real freedom means you're not the prisoner of your senses. You don't have to go where they lead you. You have the power to make the choice. I don't have very good control when it comes to potato chips, but there's areas where we don't. But this is, when you come to balancing your life, the whole basis of it is mind training. Becoming the person in charge of this body-mind complex, not the person that's just along for the ride. If we live our lives just along for the ride, then it reaches a certain point and you go, oh, well, my body's wearing out. Because it will. They do. They're not permanent. As one of our swamis said, all compounded matter must disintegrate. And we are compounded matter. So, it's not forever. And that's the thing that we can enjoy it while we're here, if we're in control. Otherwise, you are just a victim or someone tied to a horse that's running wild. You don't have any say in your life if you just go with that. Go with those outgoing senses. And, I mean, that's, obviously that was the way I felt, otherwise I never would have joined a convent, right? But to be able to make these choices, how do we do it? Well, we get the most help from our parents, because if they can instill that what you do in your life, like, has a consequence when you're little, then you don't have to fight so hard as you get older. If your parents can say you have a toy box. And if your parents can say, when you're finished, put the toys back in the toy box. We had a friend who started adopting foster children, and he decided he was going to raise these children the way he had not been raised. So he never gets angry at them. He tells them what the rules are. This is what we'll do. We'll have fun, we'll do this, but these are the things, and he has increased their responsibilities as they've grown older. When they were very small, it was put the toys away. And if I find them out 3 days in a row, then they're leaving. And he followed through. If the toys were out, and they would cry and carry on, that's my favorite. Well, I'm not doing anything to you. You made this choice. You didn't put it back in the toy box. Now, one of his sons is now an Olympic gymnast, and he's only about, I think he's 14. He's been in the pre-Olympic trials. He has children who were born with drug problems, fetal alcohol syndrome, but he keeps this very calm consistency with them. And they seem to be doing extremely well. And they're not unhappy children. They're very, very happy. But he just sets up certain boundaries, and the boundaries get wider as they get older. So if our parents, or as parents, you can do this for your children when you have them, it helps. Because we learn that we're making the choices. Our parents aren't just simply telling us, you do it. You are offered a choice. If you do this, then this will happen. If you do that, then a consequence that you will keep. But that makes it easy for children to be fairly disciplined as they get closer to adulthood. Not so hard to train their minds themselves. Now, when you start at the advanced age of, like I was 28, it's more difficult because I had formed a lot of habits, and they were not good habits. They weren't bad habits, but they were just lazy. Doing what I wanted when I wanted, still fighting against other people's schedules. That makes it more difficult. As soon as you realize that you're just you're still being controlled by the outside. Doing the routine is not controlling you if I choose to do it. If I choose not to do it and to fight it, then I am being controlled by it because it's making me angry, frustrated, and rebellious. And I don't have the control to do what I need to do. When you realize that, then it becomes very simple to follow if you're in the path of life that you want to be in, to do it and just get on with it. Because, yeah, it's easy. Now, does anyone have any questions? I'm tired of talking. Any questions, any comments? Do you find this really, annoying? I would. Yeah.
So when you were describing your path, at least through college, and being allowed to switch majors, a lot of it had the tone of having your own free will and independence. What if you're in a stage where you don't have that per se? So it doesn't really feel like you can have the free will to make all these choices, but you're saying do burden you with feeling enslaved by feelings of being upset and things like that. I mean, I guess it's your choice to consider, for example, your parents' approval of your choices or things like that's your choice to do so, but I mean, sometimes they also have more controlling factors like stability financially or
yes,
things like that. So how do you keep a balance then between I don't know, maintaining that independence when you don't have it logistically, I guess.
Yeah. Colleges have become so expensive nowadays that it's one of the most inhibiting factors, I think, around. And if your parents are helping you, you don't have the freedom to, what I would call, waste time taking extraneous courses. I didn't have that problem. I would say that if you truly feel that you are pursuing the entire wrong path, talk to your parents and see how they feel. If you just are tired of it, but it's the path that you really, the study that you really do enjoy, then just get through it and say, this is really what I wanted to do. Now, I have known people who have gotten their degree and advanced degrees in the area that they had chosen, and after they got into the workforce have decided, I really don't like this. And then they change professions. Now, it's not so easy, I don't think, in the hard sciences to change professions or directions, but many people have found that they didn't even really want to work in a professional situation, that they wanted to, that they were actually happier if they took a lesser job that they were way overqualified for, but they had more time for themselves. And I've known people who have had a very not so economically successful life, but emotionally and personally, they're very happy. So that's what I said when you have to look at your life and decide what it is you want out of life. Right now I'm dealing with a young person who, her absolute passion in life was the classics. And she got her master's and she said, and there's nothing I can do except teach college and I'd have to get my PhD. And her mother was an elementary school teacher and said, don't ever go into elementary school. Well, she took time out and went with AmeriCorps and just decided she would volunteer for a year. And she has gone into teaching elementary school, middle school, and she loves it. But her parents, her mother is quite, you've really blown it there. But she doesn't feel like that. So, and it's basically her life, no matter what her parents' expectations were. I mean, my parents certainly did not expect me to become a nun in a Hindu sect. Because in the 60s and the 70s, there were, brainwashing, and they had to come into these sects and get you out of them and deprogram you and everything. And that's what they were terrified of. We invited them down, they met everyone, and they said, oh, it's not so odd as we thought it was. So, if you're doing what your heart really says to do, most people will come around. They'll be disappointed for a while, or they'll think, what have you done with your life? Well, I had an uncle who kept saying, you've just opted out of life. You're going to miss the joys of family life. And I looked at him. His daughter was drug addicted, my cousin. His son spent all of his time trying to get as far away from civilization as he possibly could. And I thought, and this is the joys of family life. But for him it was. So you can't argue with those things. Every person has something that their heart resonates with. And it may be the area that you're the most capable in, and it may seem that it isn't, but in the long run, the area that you're most capable in will be the one that your heart leads you to, because you'll be happier in it. Now, a lot of people think that being happy is a frivolous pursuit. I don't think it is. I think being happy in life is probably one of the best things you can do for yourself, for society, and for the world. Because if you're happy, you're at peace with yourself, you're at peace with your friends, you are not, you're not depressed, you're an asset anywhere you go. People like being around you, and you like being with yourself. So, and I thought, well, I've never thought it was frivolous, but then I had it verified by the Dalai Lama. He said, the best thing you can be in this life is to be happy. And I thought, right. So often we're influenced by outside forces, outside people, because we, like I said, I was really good in math. Really good in math. I was to be a math major. And possibly with a chemistry minor. And I got to college and I went, no way. And I was raised in a bedroom community for Boeing where every single father in the area was an engineer. Everyone was an engineer. We had no choice about going to college. Everyone was going to college. That was it. And because you're 16, 17, you go along with it. You don't even think about it. No, right now I'm kind of telling parents that I need, if your child wants a break between high school and college, let them take it. Let them see what they want to do. But it's not for everyone. But if they do have those kind of questions, I do encourage it. Because I think so often in our upbringing, we don't allow all the opportunities. We don't see all the opportunities that are there. Any other questions? Yeah.
So thank you so much for your time. Now I'm not really sure how to phrase my question, but I wanted to ask about ceremonies, because you talked about habits, right? Daily habits that we form. And I think, people in general, of course myself, look for meaning in life.
Yes.
And one place that I find meaning is in ceremonies, where, whether it be festivals or religious occasions, or any time when you ascribe meaning to an action that is done a certain way and people agree on that, right? What do you think is the place for rituals and for ceremonies in our lives? Do you think that they lead to do you think they have meaning? Why do they have meaning? And do you think it's a good path to happiness?
Definitely. In our particular faith, that would be the pursuit of bhakti yoga, where we have pujas. In our convent, we have 2 shrines. We have a small one that was there before the temple was built, and we have the temple. Now we do daily worship in both of them. We have daily arati, and we have mangala arati. And if you don't know what mangala arati, it's ritualistically getting the Lord up each day, greeting the day, sitting and meditating. Puja is a highly regulated worship. It would be similar to a Catholic Mass, if you're more familiar with that. Protestants don't have something similar to that because with all the ritual. But any religion that has certain rituals has this aspect. And what it involves as I say, that's the bhakti yoga part, where you worship God selflessly. You forget yourself in identifying with God, in taking care of God. We do that every day in both the shrine and the temple. So it's an integral part of our life. And yes, I think it has definitely a place in everyone's life. In some people's lives, it doesn't take the form of worshiping God or partaking in a certain ceremony. In some people's lives, it takes the form of selfless service, volunteering, doing things for other people. What we would call that is worshiping the God in man. The two mottos of our order are your own realization and the worship of God in man. So part of the thrust of our whole entire order is to consciously choose to see every person that you meet as a manifestation of God. Try to see past the exterior and see the God within them. Some people it's harder, because we all have ones that just are annoying. But if you get past what is it that annoys me, it's usually something that you have in your own personality that you're really irritated with. So, as I say, some rituals don't involve actual rituals, but they involve selflessness. And I do think it's very much a part of everyone's. But to live a balanced life, then you have to have some knowledge, some quiet meditation, discrimination, looking at your own motivations, and some work. You will have probably one or two that will appeal to you more, that will match your temperament more. When I first arrived at the convent, I read the 4 yogas and I went, okay, Swami, Karma Yoga is the one that I'm good at. And he just looked at me and laughed, because I like to work, yes, but I was very attached to the outcome of the work. Extremely attached. I wanted the praise when I did a good job, and I definitely did not want the blame when I did a bad job. That's not Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga is do the best you can, to the best of your ability, and then leave it. The outcome belongs to God. It's not your responsibility anymore. So when I realized after about 15 years why he had laughed at me. The other thing that most Westerners decide is they're jnanis. They are going to take the path of knowledge, because that is the one that they're all intelligent, they're students, yes. Now, the path of jnana says you must discriminate every single minute and say, this is not eternal. It's called we call it the negative path. Not this, not this, not this. Because everything you're encountering every day is you're questioning. Is it eternal? Is it everlasting? Now think about just anything that happened. Think about right now. Is this eternal? Are you eternal? Is your body eternal? Was it the same body you had 5 years ago? Is it the same one you're going to have 20 years from now? No. I mean, you probably know better than I how often the cells change. We have a complete cell change, like how many days or how many years. Someone told me once who was in biology, and I was like, really? Is our mind eternal? How many times have you changed your mind? How many times have you liked this? I'm going to love it forever. And in like 2 months you're going, maybe not. But the path of jhana is also very, very difficult because it is negative until you get to the point where you can say, and I'll give you some Hindu terminology, that everything is God or everything is Brahman. Once you negate everything that you can see, feel, smell, taste, then you realize that the one thing eternal is what all of this is. Whether you call it energy, whether you call it knowledge, whether you call it bliss, whether you call it truth, there is one eternal. And I'll stop there because you don't know whether it's a being, whether it's a concept. It is eternal. And we are part of that. We are eternal in that sense. And that's what we're trying to live a balanced life for. Implement these yogas is to find that eternal core that is us and is in everyone else. So, jhana yoga is not so easy either. Oh, yes, I'm not the body, I'm not the body. Darn, I just had my knee replaced and I'm really the body. That hurts like crazy. Yes, I am the body. When someone truly gets to that point, one of our nuns who died not so very long ago had what should have been a very, very painful death. She had Alzheimer's, she had all kinds of things wrong, but she was completely and absolutely detached from her body. She really was. And all she did when people came in was she sang them this little section of the Gita where, know the self, unborn, undying, never ceasing, never beginning. She sang that to them. She had been a composer and had composed lots of songs. And she sang that over and over and over again to every single nurse who walked into her room, everyone who walked in, and they all said, what is that she's singing? It's just beautiful. And that's how she died. So it is possible to reach that point with years of practice, where you have completely identified with the eternal, though trapped in a body for a while, but not identified with it. Bhakti yoga, they say, the one of ritual, is the easiest one for this time, because you have an object to put your emotions on. And we're all emotional beings. We like to pretend we're detached or we're calm and collected, but mostly we're pretty emotional. Someone looks at you a certain way and you wonder, I wonder what they're thinking. No, they're not thinking, but I wonder what they're thinking about me. Mostly it's they've either got a stomach ache or they thought about, oh golly, I forgot to turn the gas off on the stove. Oh dear. But we tend to emotionally take things very personally, which is another manifestation in one way of our divinity. We truly think we are the center of the universe. And in one sense, we are. But so is everyone else. We're all at the same place. We are the same center of the universe. And that's the part we have to recognize. And finding some kind of balance in your life gives you time to calmly take in information and look at it and maintain an outlook, maintain a calmness of acceptance and interpretation. You don't want to be a reacting being, because when you simply live reacting to the externals, that's another indication that you're a slave to your senses and your emotions. If someone can just poke and you go into immediate fight or flight, which isn't the normal human condition, but you have to learn that you don't need it these days. You don't need fight or flight. We're not encountering, saber-toothed tigers anymore with a stick. It served us well when we were doing saber-toothed tigers with a big stick. But fight or flight doesn't work in today's society. It ends up violence or cowardice. If we can get the control of our mind, balance out our life so that we have that control, then we can rationally look at what's going on and make our decisions as to what direction we are going. A lot of it has to do with even choosing the friends that you hang out with. You can choose friends who are like-minded, pursuing generally the same path, and hang out with them. Or you can choose friends who are really way out there, and in our, I don't know how it is up here, but in Southern California there's way too many drugs, way too many. And a lot of people get kind of seduced by the drug. And they end up hanging out with people who are always into that. And they don't do too well. But we choose our friends. And we can make those choices too. When I was in college, I was there really early, and there were no drugs. The first person, oh my goodness, it was a college of 2,600, okay, really small. And in my senior year, 2 people came back from Mexico and they had marijuana with them. And we were all horrified. I came back 2 years later to do an advanced degree, and 4 of my friends had died from overdoses. So, we choose these. We choose our path in life. It's our choice. And we do have control of that. Sometimes we don't feel like we do, but we do. Any other questions? Yeah.
Initially, you mentioned you have to find an answer to this question: what do you want to do with your life?
Yeah.
So, since childhood, we have been pursuing a career, or you want to study something. Once you have achieved those goals, say, how do you define what you want to do in your life?
You see, that's a temporary goal. That's a finite goal, what you want to study. What do you want to do with your whole life? That's the goal that you have to decide. And you have to really dig deep inside. Do you want to be financially successful? Do you want to have a family? Do you want to be, what is it that will make you happy? What is it that, do you have a specific company you want to work for? Now, one of our monks is a nuclear physicist, and he was working for NASA when he moved in, and they really did not want him to move in. But for his peace of mind and happiness, he moved into the monastery, and he ended up rewiring an old building. And that satisfied him more than doing the rocket science for NASA. So this is the kind of thing that only you can know. As I say, I took one look at this monk and I said, I just want his kind of peace and being. And can I learn it? Well, it's, you work on it all your life. And hopefully you get it someday. But, yeah, it's a difficult one. Because most of us don't think in, I know I never did, I never thought in the long term. I mean, it can be as simple as, do I want to die afraid? Or do I want to die knowing who I am? Because we're all going to die. It's inevitable. We opted in for life and there's only one way out. So, that's it. We don't like to look at that half of the opting in for life, but I can't remember who it was, but one of the saints said, all of life is preparation for death. All of it. Am I going to avoid the thoughts of death my entire life and then go, what's going to happen? Or am I going to quietly prepare so that I can greet death with equanimity and no fear? I don't know. That's something each person has to look at, because we're all in different places in our evolution. We all have different karmas. We come into this life as a result of our past lives, and we have chosen the situation we're born into. We have chosen our parents as the people that will give us the most opportunity to grow. So it's definitely that kind of a situation. Someone says, well, why are some people born with tremendous disabilities? And why are some people born in wealthy families who have no worries at all? Basically, your karma. Which we don't like to look at, like, really? It's my fault. It's not a fault, it's just part of your evolution, your karmic evolution. So you make the best of what you have and see how you can grow from it, what you can learn. What you can learn from the parents you have, the situation you're born into, your profession, whatever. But you can't do it without a balanced mind. And a balanced mind is a balanced life. So, I don't know what else to say. It sounds pretty dismal, doesn't it? But I actually have a good time. I had someone once call. This was, and I think I know who it was. They called and said, I'm really curious about the convent. This is going to sound really weird, but do you really have a life? And I went, I never thought of it like that. And it took me a few minutes, and finally I said, well, I guess I think I do because I'm enjoying it. Now, we don't do the same thing every day. When I look back, as I say, I've been there 45 years now. And it's like 7 lives have been in that 45 years. We've done different things inside the convent, always heading to the goal that I set up. But the external manifestations are really different. We did field work. We hand-planted 15,000 obas to save the whales back in the 70s. And, I mean, stoop labor, hand-watering 15,000 little bushes. We did that. We've designed buildings and gotten them built. We've designed gardens, done that. Painted for 10 years. Paintings. All kinds of things. So we never know if we have a major goal in mind. The manifestations may change along the way, but as long as we keep the eye on the major goal, and you make your choices on, this is what that's where I am going. And I will choose to do the things that lead me there. Now, what work I have to do and how I have to be, those are extraneous. I will do it to the best of my ability. I will always keep the goal in mind and try and make those choices. Try to be selfless, try to be as helpful, and try not to get angry. I had a flash temper when I moved in, so we had to work on that a long time. But, you know, all of these things, we're just trying to manifest our best self and see the best in everyone else. And I think that's a long time I've talked. Thank you all for coming. If there's any other questions.